Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced, and in this video what I want to do is talk about how easy it is to pull data from Dremio into your notebooks. Okay, and here I have basically our same notebook environment from the Polars videos and the Python videos where we set up our Conda environment. That's what I have here on the right. Now, the beauty of this is oftentimes when you populate your notebooks, you're going to have data in maybe 3, 4, 5 different sources. So then you have to establish connections to 3, 4, 5 different places, manage different JDBC, ODBC drivers. If you've ever done that, that's not very fun. Manage different types of credentials and whatnot. The nice thing about having a central access point and connecting all your data and curating all your data through Dremio, then you only have to connect to one place. And the great thing about Dremio is that not only can you connect through JDBC ODBC, but you can also connect using Apache Arrow Flight. Now, Dremio has a Apache Arrow Flight driver, so you can actually just use that, set up that ODBC driver, that JDBC ODBC driver, and just connect that way. But you can also just connect with Arrow Flight, like using the PyArrow library, and it's actually not very hard. Okay, a couple of tools that I've made to make it even easier is there's one library in PyPy called Dremio Simple Query that makes it really easy. Like most of the actual PyArrow code you'd have to write is kind of taken care of for you. You would just have to pass it your Dremio credentials and your URL, and the code really ends up looking like this simple. Like literally, let's see here, just to show you the full thing here. Okay, in this video, like the actual library is set up to kind of really easily integrate with like pandas and DuckDB. So as you can see here, we create a DuckDB connection. I load my environmental variables. I go get my Dremio token. That's basically your Dremio credentials. I go get my Arrow endpoint. That's going to be this URL right here. That's what you would use to connect the Dremio Cloud specifically. And then I would just pass to the Dremio connection constructor, and then I can just pass SQL. Okay, and I can get back arrow buffers, but using this toArrow function. Now, the only thing about this is if you're using Conda, this library isn't available in Conda, and it doesn't necessarily have the Polars integration. So what I've done is that in the repo that comes with this video, so basically if you click in the video description, there's a repository. I did put a modified version of the code for this, which you can just basically copy into your Conda projects to have this functionality. And I'll show it to you real quick. It's really not the most complicated code in the world. So you see here, it's a total of 39 lines. It's basically just creating a constructor for Dremio that basically establishes the connection to the Dremio server, and then just has several functions that leverage the PyArrow Flight functions to then send the queries and generate the right stuff back. So, returns a Polars Dataframe. Let me just edit that comment there. So essentially, I made it where now it's simple as the following. So again, you can just use that code. That code is there. Again, so basically the work of figuring all that out is pretty much done for you. You just have to figure out, hey, what queries do I want? Okay, so again, in Dremio, we created this view, this weather precipitation for anything that's over 1, okay, view. Okay, and I can, again, query it. But what if I want to bring it into a notebook so I can do visualizations like with Seaborn, like we did earlier, in earlier videos when we're going through the whole Polars exercises? Well, it's simple as this. Okay, so here in this notebook, and again, all these notebooks and all this code is available in the video description. There's a repo where you can find all of this. Okay, I'm going to take my token from a config file that I have, so that way you guys don't see my token. Now, where do you get your token? Right here where it says account settings in your Dremio Cloud account, you can just click on that, and then you can click over here and you can generate tokens. Okay, pretty easy. Okay, and then you can set them temporary. So for example, this token is only a 24-hour token. Okay, which I'm still going to delete right after this video. So no bright ideas in case I accidentally expose it. But okay, and basically I'm getting that information there, so that's all that is. And then here I'm creating the Dremio connection, so I'm passing the token and the URL, which is the URL. So again, keep in mind it has to be this prefix here because it's a gRPC API. Apache Arrow Flight is an RPC API. I've done videos and podcasts where I've talked a lot more in depth about why that is important. The short and long of it is that when you create a gRPC API, you create this contract called the proto file that basically establishes sort of what are all the different things you can tell that server to do. And by having that contract, you can have any mix and match of servers and clients. So literally, like Dremio has their implementation of a gRPC Apache Arrow Flight server because they follow the contract of all the functions that need to be defined and how they need to work. And basically, any other sort of database data warehouse can then implement that same contract, and one client will work. So in this case, instead of having like to download a bunch of different ODBC drivers or JDBC drivers for every different database you want to use, you can just use Apache Arrow. You would just use the PyArrow library or the Apache Arrow ODBC drivers that Dremio created. I always forget if it's the JDBC drivers or ODBC drivers that they created that will give you the ability to connect to any Arrow support, any Arrow flight server. So that's the beauty of it. The idea is that instead you get rid of the days of juggling several different drivers, and you just have one thing that lets you connect to anything that supports it. But it's not just that. Apache Arrow reduces this serialization that goes through data transfer when you're transferring data through JDBC or DBC, where you're converting from row to columnar, which slows things down. So Dremio uses Apache Arrow when it's processing, and then with Aeroflight can send you that data in that same format. So there's no serialization needed, which really speeds up the transfer of large amounts of data. Now, Polars is built on top of Apache Arrow as well. Okay, so again, converting that Arrow table into a Polars Dataframe is a pretty quick operation. So this is going to end up sort of in sort of the quickest sort of way to get the data from point A to point B into a data frame that you probably can do. Okay, so that's the reason why this mix is pretty powerful. Okay, but again, I established that connection, and then basically I'm going to use the toPolars function. This function doesn't exist in the library. This is a custom function that I created. It's part of this code. So again, if you want that, the code's going to be right here in the repo. You can literally, as long as you have PyArrow and Polars as part of your environment, you can just literally copy this code and it'll just work. Okay. But then this basically is going to send the query over to Dremio, which again, if I go over here to my jobs page, I should see that some queries were sent over via Aeroflight. Okay, so you see here, Aeroflight client. Okay, so that query is going to get sent over. So I'm going to run it right now so you can see it happen again. So I'm going to run it. So that query gets sent over. And then I'm going to print the data frame and see there's the data. Okay, so we got that from Dremio. That could have been the result of a join between data sets I had in completely different places. It could be anything that I have available to me in my Dremio account. Okay, and then I can use Seaborn and I can make a line plot, which I do right there. Okay, and you know, again, anytime I could share this notebook with someone, they can run it. It's going to run all these queries live, and they'll have a very fast view. Okay, and you see how fast that was. So that was me basically running queries and generating a visualization directly from my data lake, and it was all pretty fast. And this is without me using the reflections feature in Dremio, and that makes it even faster. Okay, when you start getting into really, really, really large data sets. So yeah, and actually on that reflections feature, that'll be the next and final video of this particular series. But yeah, it's pretty easy to go bring all that data from Dremio into a notebook for whatever use case you're trying to do, whether you're doing AI ML, building out data applications, whatnot. You can use this Apache Arrow way of pulling in the data to pull in the data quickly and easily into your applications. So again, my name is Alex Merced. I'll see you around. Again, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff.